Book 26 is the famous book on the 10 stages of enlightenment. The teaching of the 10 stages is presented as the foundation of all Buddhist teachings, just as an alphabet is the foundation of all writings in its language. This book is of such significance that it was translated into Chinese no fewer than 5 times, 3 times as an individual scripture over a period of 500 years. It also exists in Sanskrit as an individual scripture. The flower ornament scripture is said to contain, in one form or another, all phases of Buddhist teaching. True to the scripture's basic structural principle of the parts reflecting the whole, this comprehensiveness is also to be seen clearly within the book on the 10 stages. Of the various modes of teaching, sudden and gradual, explicit and implicit, it is the gradual and explicit that overtly dominate in the 10 stages, thus making it one of the clearest and most straightforward of the books of the scripture. Pursuing a theme of developmental progression, the 10 stages encompass the course of the enlightening being from the first ecstasies of disentanglement and spiritual attraction to the final rain of teaching pouring from enlightened knowledge, thus completing and restarting the cycle of self and other enlightenment. Within this overall cycle are parallel cycles of elevation of self and others. As the enlightening beings progress from stage to higher stage, there is ongoing expansion not only of extent, depth, and precision of awareness and perception, but also of corresponding versatility and power in communicative outreach. Throughout this progress, the development of awakening is prevented from halting at each stage by the overriding aspiration for complete, perfect enlightenment, the thoughts of the enlightening being set ultimately on the attributes of Buddhahood. The practitioner aspires to be the best of beings, not by comparison with others, but in terms of potential fulfillment, not limiting horizons or coveting personal satisfaction by acceptance of lesser goals. The 10 stages include phases of practice such as are usually associated with the so-called lesser vehicles of individual salvation, but the enlightening being does not take the annihilation or liberation from worldly concerns made available by these methods as the final realization. In the high stage wherein effortlessness and cessation of mental and physical action take place, it is external inspiration that motivates the practitioner to rise even beyond this stage of personal peace. In the highest stage, the cosmic awareness whose perspective pervades the whole scripture ultimately opens up explicitly, showing the all-in-one, one-in-all vision of the realm of reality. An important theme in the 10 stages, one that appears here and there throughout the scripture in various guises, is the cultivation of both mundane and transmundane welfare. This is presented in concrete terms in this book, as the practitioner in a certain stage engages in the development and exercise of skills and worldly occupations. The choice of activities, whether in the arts and sciences, business, crafts, literary and cultural pursuits, entertainment, or other fields, is guided not by the personal desires of the practitioners, but by the current needs of the society that they are serving, according to what will be beneficial. The development of such occupational skills is undertaken in the same stage at which meditation is the main practice among the 10 transcendent ways. The balancing of work in the world and world-transcending practices, characteristic of the ideal of comprehensive Buddhist activity, functions to promote the simultaneous benefit of self and others, preventing what is called intoxication by the wine of meditation concentration, an obstacle in the path and an indulgence forbidden by the precepts of enlightening beings. In a later stage, these worldly occupations become effortless and can be carried on spontaneously without obstruction. A most important concept mentioned early on in the book on the 10 stages is that of the 6 characteristics, as it was known in the Huayan school of Buddhism in East Asia. Not explicitly developed in the scripture, but rather illustrated throughout, this idea was singled out by the founders of the Huayan school in China as a major element of their philosophy. The 6 characteristics are totality, distinction, sameness, difference, formation, and disintegration. In the context of stages of enlightenment, or practices, this means that all together form a single totality, while each are distinct elements of that totality. All are the same insofar as they complement each other and work together to produce the total effect, while individually they have different functions within the whole work. As elements in the same one totality, they form the whole and in it reach their individual consummation, while separately they not only do not form a whole, but also are not individually perfected without the others. The philosophy of the Huayan school, based on the flower ornament scripture, also sees the 6 characteristics as aspects of all phenomena. According to this philosophy, the 6 characteristics are a comprehensive way of viewing things so as to overcome the tendency to lapse into partial or one-sided perceptions. Considering the phenomena and principles of Buddhism in this light, for example, produces an understanding quite different from that fostered by the notion of the multiplicity of Buddhistic teachings as representing rival schools and conflicting ideologies. In this sense, the 6 characteristics provide a useful diagnostic aid for assessing movements that have actually hardened into exclusive schools or ideologies. Seen in the flower ornament context, such movements become inwardly sterile by stabilization around temporary and partial teachings, yet outwardly contain a portion of nutrient in that they demonstrate this process. It is in this sense that the scripture on the ultimate extinction states that even in the time of the extinction of the teaching is not extinct, for its very demise is its demonstration of the causes thereof, for the edification of the perceptive. Using the 6 characteristics, it is quite easy to get an overall perspective on the message of the flower ornament scripture, on the activity known as the practice of the vow of Samantabhadra, the embodiment of universal good. Here, all workers for enlightenment are one totality. The whole effort is one totality. Within this single overall effort, different workers fulfill different functions. These may be represented, for example, as different schools, different cycles of teaching, different modes of practice. In essence, all of these workers are the same, based on the vow of universal good and the aspiration for universal enlightenment. All ultimately have the same essence, which is referred to as the Buddha nature, but they are different in characteristics, in the formulations and methods that they employ. The work of all the workers forms the body of Samantabhadra. The multitude forms the one. No individual worker completes the entire task alone. The enlightening being enlightens all sentient beings and purifies all worlds, as an operative in the whole work, the vows of the enlightening being representing attunement with this totality. If different formulae, practices, or phases of the teaching are separately held onto as dogma, absolute and complete in themselves, the total dynamic of the universally good work disintegrates. The characteristics of formation and disintegration could also be seen in terms of the supersession of teachings and the spatial dispersal of schools such as illustrated by the classical Chan schools in China, with formation and dispersal part of an ongoing process. The relation to the whole work is not necessarily organizational in the conventional institutional sense, but rather is organic and functional. Book 26. The 10 Stages. Thus have I heard. Once the Blessed One was sojourning in the heaven of control of others' emanations. Not long after his perfect enlightenment, the second week, he was in the palace of the king of that heaven, a shining, radiantly pure treasury of jewels, together with a large group of enlightening beings, all of them beyond regression and bound to become perfectly enlightened in one lifetime, who had come from different worlds. Those enlightening beings were abiding in the sphere of knowledge of all enlightening beings. Their sphere of action was that of ceaseless penetration into the entries of the realm of knowledge of all enlightened ones. They were skilled in showing all feats of power appropriately timed for the development and liberating guidance of all sentient beings. In order to fulfill all the great vows of enlightening beings, in all worlds and times, all ages and all lands, they diligently cultivated practices unceasingly. They had fulfilled the inexhaustible stores of virtue, knowledge, and occult powers of all enlightening beings for the benefit of all worldly beings. Having attained the highest ultimate reaches of transcendental knowledge and expedient liberative means of enlightening beings, they showed entries into mundane existence and nirvana, while not interrupting the application of means of practices of enlightening beings. Sporting freely in the meditations, liberations, concentrations, attainments, and mystic knowledges of enlightening beings, they were skilled in the demonstration of all feats of mystic knowledge. Having attained the occult powers and command of enlightening beings, going without effort in a single mental instant to the circles of all Buddhas, they acted as leading interlocutors. Holding the wheels of teachings of all Buddhas, they had gone to make offerings to and wait on many Buddhas. They had realized the manifestation of bodies in all worlds engaged in the undertaking of the deeds of all enlightening beings. Their voices sounded in all realms without obstruction, and the sphere of knowledge of the mind unobstructed in all places and times was revealed to them. They had thoroughly fulfilled the attainments of qualities of all enlightening beings, and their qualities could never be exhaustively explained even in untold eons. Their names were Diamond Matrix, Jewel Matrix, Lotus Matrix, Matrix of Glory, Matrix of Lotus-like Splendor, Solar Matrix, Sun Matrix, Earth Matrix, Matrix of Lunar Purity, Matrix of Manifestation of all arrays of adornments, Matrix of Illumination of Knowledge, Matrix of Radiance, Matrix of Blossoming Glory, Matrix of Blue Lotus Splendor, Matrix of Celestial Qualities, Matrix of Splendor of Virtue, Matrix of Purity of Unobstructed Knowledge, Matrix of Godlike Majesty, Matrix of Purity, Matrix of Non-Defilement, Matrix of Adornment of Varied Eloquence, Matrix of Radiance of Great Webs of Light Beams, Matrix of Radiance of Power of Splendor of Undefiled Light, Matrix of Pure Radiance of Accumulated Gold, Matrix of Pure Splendor adorned by all characteristics of enlightening beings, Matrix of Glorious Adornments of Diamond Flames, Matrix of Beauty of Flames of Light, Matrix of Light of Majesty of the Stars, Matrix of Unhindered Knowledge of the Treasury of the Sky, Matrix of Sweet Sounds with Unobstructed Spheres of Resonance, Matrix of Spells supporting the aspirations of all beings, Matrix of Adornments of the Ocean, Matrix of Majesty of the Polar Mountain, Matrix of Purity of all qualities, Matrix of Splendor of those who realize thusness, Matrix of Majesty of the Enlightened, and Moon of Liberation. The Buddha was with innumerable enlightening beings assembled from various Buddha lands, led by Diamond Matrix, these being the main ones. At that time, Diamond Matrix, by the power of Buddha, entered the concentration called Light of the Great Vehicle, and as soon as he had done so, there appeared to him as many Buddhas as atoms in 10 billion Buddha lands, from beyond as many worlds as atoms in 10 Buddha lands in each of the 10 directions, all of whom were alike named Diamond Matrix. Those Buddhas said, "It is good that you have entered this concentration of enlightening beings' light of the great vehicle. In this you are supported by the Buddhas numerous as atoms in 10 billion Buddha lands, beyond worlds as numerous as atoms in 10 billion Buddha lands in the 10 directions, and by the power of the ancient vow of Vairocana Buddha. And it is also due to the excellence of your virtue and knowledge, so that all enlightening beings may enter the stages of knowledge of the illuminating power of the inconceivable Buddha teachings, to attain all roots of goodness, for skill in analyzing all Buddha teachings, for breadth of knowledge of things, for the exposition of well-constructed teachings, for the purification of holistic knowledge, so as to be unstained by worldly things, for the purification of supramundane roots of goodness, for the discovery of particulars of the sphere of inconceivable knowledge, and for the realization of the sphere of omniscient knowledge. That is to say, it is for the sake of the undertaking and attainment of the 10 stages of enlightening beings, for the sake of correct explanation of skill in setting up the stages of enlightening beings, for the sake of proper focusing on the teachings of the Buddhas to distinguish undefiled phenomena, for skill with the light of great wisdom with knowing discernment, for entry into complete definitive adaptive knowledge, for the light of eloquence to explain without hesitation or obstruction in accord with differences in capability and station, to fulfill the stage of great discursive knowledge, to never forget the determination for enlightenment, to develop all beings to perfection, and to attain skill and discernment in all situations. Furthermore, you should explain this teaching, skill in differentiation of means of revealing truth, by the power of the Buddha, by the aid of the light of knowledge of the Buddha, for the perfect purification of your own roots of goodness, for the thorough purification of the cosmos, for the protection of sentient beings, for the body of knowledge of the body of reality, to receive the anointment of all Buddhas, for the manifestation of the most exalted being in all worlds, to completely transcend all worldly paths, to purify the path to the supramundane, to fulfill omniscience. Then those Buddhas gave the enlightening being Diamond Matrix physical invincibility, the ability to teach with unhindered presence of mind, pure knowledge of differentiation, the power of unfailing recollection, skill with certain intellect, unfailing understanding in all situations, the invincible power of the perfectly enlightened, indomitability of power and expertise of a Buddha, attainment of discernment and teaching by the discursive knowledge of the omniscient, and gave him the well-arrayed physical, verbal, and mental adornments of all Buddhas. Why? Because of his attainment of the reality of this concentration in accord with its name, because of the upshot of his past vows, because of his thoroughly pure determination, because of his purification of his sphere of knowledge, because of his having stored well the provisions for the path, because of his having accomplished well what he had to do, because of his being an immeasurable vessel of remembrance, because of his having purified clear faith, because of his having mastered the method of concentration spells without corruption, because of his being perfectly stamped with the seal of self-knowledge, and because of his being perfectly stamped with the seal of knowledge of the realm of reality. Then those Buddhas, by their occult power, extended their right hands from where they were and rubbed the head of Diamond Matrix, at which point the enlightening being arose from that concentration and said to the other enlightening beings, "Perfectly sure, O blessed offspring of the victorious, is the vow of enlightening beings, unadulterated, impossible to see in its entirety, vast as the cosmos, including all space, eternal, rescuing all beings, wherein alone the blessed enlightening beings enter the stage of knowledge of the past Buddhas, enter the stage of knowledge of the future Buddhas, and enter the stage of knowledge of the present Buddhas. There are 10 stages of enlightening beings that enter into the stage of knowledge of the Buddhas. And what are these 10 stages of enlightening beings that have been, will be, and are being explained by the Buddhas of the past, future, and present? Having meditated on them, I will now tell you. They are the enlightening beings stage called extreme joy, that called purity, that called refulgence, that called blazing, that called difficult to conquer, that called presence, that called far-going, that called immovable, that called good mind, and the stage of enlightening beings called cloud of teaching. These are the 10 stages of enlightening beings that have been, will be, and are expounded by the Buddhas of the past, future, and present. I have never seen any Buddha land where the Buddhas do not elucidate these 10 stages of enlightening beings. Why? This is the supreme light of teaching method to purify the path of enlightening being. That is the definition of the specifics of the 10 stages. Inconceivable is this realm of knowledge of the 10 stages. Then Diamond Matrix, having mentioned the names of these 10 stages, fell silent and gave no further definitions. Thereupon the assembly of enlightening beings became anxious, having heard only the names of the stages, their definition not having been explained. They wondered why Diamond Matrix remained silent after mentioning only the names of the 10 stages and did not analyze them further. At that time there was among the assembly of enlightening beings an enlightening being named Moon of Liberation, who knew what was on the minds of the assembly of enlightening beings, and who asked Diamond Matrix in verse, O ye of pure intent, mindfulness, knowledge, and virtue, having mentioned the supreme stages, why do you not explain them? All these honored enlightening beings are sure in mind. Why, having mentioned the stages, do you not define them? These experienced offspring of Buddha want to hear. Please explain the meanings and ways of the correct stages. This assembly is quiet, free from sloth, pure, purified, steadfast, full of virtue and knowledge. All stand there gazing respectfully, desirous as bees for honey, for the ultimate ambrosia. Having heard this, the wise, experienced Diamond Matrix spoke to please the assembly. Difficult, supreme is this, rare, the revelation of enlightening beings' practice. Supreme is the discernment of the practices of the stages whence Buddhahood is attained. Subtle, hard to see, beyond thought, beyond the ground of mind, hard to approach. It is the realm of the wise with untainted minds, hearing which confuses the worldly. Keeping the mind as stable as diamond, believe in the supremacy of Buddha knowledge. Knowing the mind ground is selfless, then one can hear this subtle knowledge. Like colors painted in the sky, like the wind in space, so is this undefiled knowledge of Buddha hard to see, though it be defined. Such is my understanding of that. It's hard to find anyone in the world who knows it, or even believes in it. Thus I cannot explain this ultimate. This having been said, the enlightening being Moon of Liberation said to Diamond Matrix, Pure is this assembly that is gathered, enlightening beings with thoroughly purified aspiration, thoroughly purified will, who have done their work well, who have attended hundreds of thousands of billions of Buddhas, who have thoroughly gathered the provisions for the path, who have attained immeasurable knowledge and virtue, who are free from folly and confusion, free from affliction, impurity, and attachment, who are firm in determination and faith, whose undivided attention is on these Buddha's teachings. Speak, therefore, for the enlightening beings directly witness this realm. Diamond Matrix said, "What though this assembly of enlightening beings is pure, with thoroughly purified aspirations and will, having done their work well, having well attended countless Buddhas, having attained immeasurable virtue and knowledge, free from folly and delusion, undefiled, with well-established determination and zeal, with undivided attention on these teachings of Buddhas. Yet because of the lack of benefit and the suffering and the long night of ignorance for those others who would give rise to dissent and doubt upon hearing of such inconceivable states, it is out of compassion for them that I want to remain silent." Then Moon of Liberation again asked Diamond Matrix for this doctrine. "Very well. Explain by the power of the enlightened. These inconceivable stations will be well protected and believed in. Why? Because that naturally occurs when these stages are being explained. This is what all Buddhas keep in mind, and all enlightening beings are intent on the protection of this knowledge. Why? This is the fundamental practice, and this is the fulfillment of the Buddha teachings. It is like the instruction of combinations of letters. It begins and ends with the basic characters. There is nothing expressed by combinations of letters without indication of the basic characters. In the same way, all the Buddha teachings are based on the stages, and their practices are fulfilled thereby. The consummations of the stages lead to the attainment of the knowledge of the independent. Therefore speak. The realized ones, the saints, the perfectly enlightened ones will protect and support you." At this point, those enlightening beings uttered verses in one voice, asking Diamond Matrix for this teaching. "O ye of supreme wisdom and boundless eloquence, speak the finest words in accord with ultimate truth. With recollection, steadfastness, pure knowledge, pure resolve to attain the 10 powers, and discerning intellect, explain these 10 supreme stages. Tranquil, disciplined, with accumulated goodwill, free from afflictions, delusions, pride, and views, free from doubt, this assembly hopes for your explanation. As the thirsty desire cool water, the hungry food, the sick medicine, and bees honey, so does this assembly desire your words. Therefore, ye of pure knowledge, speak of the exalted stages, free from taint, joined to the 10 powers, unobstructed, producing all good states. At that time, a radiance called light of power of enlightening beings emanated from the circle of hair between the eyebrows of Shakyamuni Buddha, accompanied by innumerable rays of light, illuminating all worlds in all 10 directions, stopping all evils and suffering, eclipsing all realms of demons, illuminating the circles of innumerable Buddhas, revealing the features, occult powers, and mystic transfigurations in the inconceivable realm of the Buddhas, illuminating the enlightening beings empowered to teach in the circles of all Buddhas in all worlds in the 10 directions. Having shown the inconceivable mystical power of the Buddha, it formed a great tower of networks of clouds of light up in the sky and remained there. In the same way, lights called light of power of enlightening beings emanated from the circle of hair between the eyebrows of the other Buddhas, accompanied by innumerable beams of light, illuminating all worlds in the 10 directions, stopping all evils and suffering, eclipsing all realms of demons, illuminating the circles of innumerable Buddhas, revealing the features, occult powers, and mystic transfigurations in the inconceivable realm of Buddhas, illuminating the enlightening beings empowered to teach in the circles of all Buddhas in all worlds in the 10 directions. Having revealed this inconceivable mystic power of Buddhas, and having illuminated the circle of Shakyamuni Buddha in the body of the enlightening being Diamond Matrix, in the same way the beams formed a great tower of webs of clouds of light up in the sky and remained there. Thus, by means of the light beams emanated from the circle of hair between the eyebrows of Shakyamuni Buddha, those worlds and those circles of Buddhas and the bodies and sitting places of their enlightening beings were clearly illumined. By the lights emanated by those other Buddhas, this world system, the circle of Shakyamuni Buddha, and the body and sitting place of Diamond Matrix were seen clearly illumined. Then, from the great tower of webs of clouds of light, by the power of the Buddha, this sound emerged. By those with 10 powers, peerless, equal to space, with boundless virtues, by the teachings of Shakyamuni, by those beyond all men and gods, is this miraculous display made. By the power of the Buddhas, open the storehouse of the kings of truth, and reveal the supreme practice and stages of knowledge distinctly. Those who hear this supreme teaching will also be empowered and supported by the Buddhas and enlightening beings, who will cause them to attain Buddhahood once they attain the 10 powers, after having gradually fulfilled the undefiled 10 stages. Even sunk in the ocean or thrown into the Holocaust, they will be able to hear this teaching without doubt. But those stuck to folly, suspicious and unreceptive, will never get to hear it. The path of knowledge of the stages, supreme, from entry, station, and attainment, please explain in order, including the practice and sphere of action. Then Diamond Matrix, looking over the 10 directions, in order to increase the purity of this assembly, at this juncture spoke these verses. Subtle and hard to know is the path of the great sages, non-conceptual, beyond conception, most difficult to contact. It is pure, known only to the wise. Its nature is quiescent, without extinction or origination. Inherently empty, utterly tranquil, non-dual, inexhaustible, liberated from all states, impartially reaching nirvana, without extremes or mean, not expressed by words, outside of time like the sky, quiescent, ultimately silent, realized by the enlightened, most difficult to express by any manner of speaking. Such are the stages in their practice, most difficult to speak of, more difficult to hear. Beyond thought and the path of mind, elicited by knowledge, realized by the highest sages, not revealed by the elements of matter and sense, unattainable by mind, intellectually inconceivable. Just as the tracks of a bird in the sky cannot be described or seen even by the enlightened, in the same way all the stages cannot be told of, much less heard. I will tell just the beginning then, out of kindness, compassion, commitment. I will tell of them in order, yet not by spheres of thought, but by knowledge are they to be fulfilled as one wishes. Such a realm is hard to see, impossible to tell of. It just rests in one's own mind. But I will speak out by the power of Buddha. It should be heard with concentration and respect. This entry of knowledge, being as such, cannot be explained even in eons. I will now give a summary, according to the meaning of the teaching as it is. Attend respectfully, blessed ones. I will speak by the power of Buddha. I will utter the voice of the highest teaching in appropriate words with examples. Though it is difficult to express in speech, yet mine is the power to do so, by the immeasurable power of Buddha and the power of the body of light that have entered into me.